Ian.
Oh, hey.
You didn't know
That was unexpected.
Very unexpected.
Got little Jules chassis inside. As we saw when it was outside, had a whole bunch of gear up in here. And I didn't need that. We do need this hydraulic pump that telescopes the trailer bed out. But for now, there was a bunch of battery mounts. There was brackets for this air tank, for an air compressor, for a winch. I yanked all that off. It's all crusty and old. And then gave the frame rails a little dressing. Got all the tabs, etc. off. So it's interesting the way that they put this together. If you look in here, this is the trailer chassis, this square piece. Then they took the truck chassis, made it up, gusseted it. This is actually the top rail of the 1990 Chevy. And then they boxed it, like you'll see on limousines, just a big cap that goes around the entirety and is bolted through in a number of places. So Greg said, hey, check out the way this chassis is put together. It's super strong. If you stand over here, Jamie, you can see all the hardware. See, all these are penetrating both frames. So it's a doubled up frame rail that is pinned together with bolts all along the way. So just like you'll see rivets in a bridge, those guys are really not going to fail. Welds may fatigue and crack, but all those bolts prohibit that.
I'm being attacked by a fly right
I know. I had that problem also. It's hot.
Welcome to summer, guys.
Last week it was 60 degrees. Today it's 95. So, yeah, it's all desert stuff. We're all good. What I was hoping to accomplish today, after getting all that riffraff sorted out, I'm going to move the transfer case, this dealie here, I'm going to move it rearward. Because in looking at this, I described how the big block engine will just bolt into this. But the more I started thinking about it, big block engine, that's putting the air cleaner somewhere up here. And then the body of the truck has to go cab over engine. That's going to be way too high. It's going to look awkward. I want this thing low and lean. So my thought was, I've seen it done a bunch of times, discussed with Jamie about it. And she's like, oh yeah, like that truck we saw at the car show. We're going to put the engine behind the cab because this wheelbase is so long. I was thinking, initially I was going to shorten the chassis. And what they did, for some reason, was lengthen the chassis. That's where this box came in. You can see these two diagonal cuts. There's one here and one just in behind. It's about a 21-inch stretch. So they added a piece and then capped the whole thing, limousine style, as I mentioned. So with a lot of work to stretch this out. I dig it because it's extra long. It looks kind of funky. So to stub it way up and then have the cab super tall over the engine, it looks like, you know, sort of like the chassis we just got. It's like, why go 100% backwards? We're looking for something that's got that low and long flavor. So first step is going to be to move this transfer case back as far as I can. That was another reason I took all this framework out. Looks like we can just cut this to size, move it right back because there's no rear drive shaft coming out of this. It'll be an extra long front drive shaft now, but that's no biggie. You get a two-piece drive shaft, just like you'll see in a long dually truck. It's same idea. But yeah, first thing we got to do is just measure the inside of this frame rail here. You can see how low this is. It's probably going to need some kind of modification back here to support that because this chassis is sort of Z'd up. See the lower rail Z's up into that one. And then this leg is pretty low in the arrangement. So I'm just going to make a couple measurements, make a couple cuts, put a floor jack under it, and move it on out.
Should I get my PPE?
No, we're just measuring now. All right. This unit was bolted in. I don't know why bolting it in was necessary, because even if you unbolted this, you're never going to get this frame out of the chassis. It's locked in. It's like there's no way you'll get it out. So I'm feeling like I could just chop this off, put it back here, weld it in, because the transfer case will just drop out with these 4 bolts, drop straight down. So I'm not seeing any reason to utilize the hardware that's holding this thing together. Just my thoughts. I'm going to measure here. So from the frame rail, this is just down 1 inch. This is down 1 inch. So coming across, we want it the same height. So yeah, this chassis here, where I'm going to attempt to bolt it to, or this chassis here I'm going to attempt to weld it to, is 1.5 inches at this point, 1.5 inches lower than this level. So it looks like this tube will be sticking up 1/2 inch. It's still a pretty good grab on the chassis rail, so I'll just gusset up over the top. And then it's going to have the same problem with this one. From this height down, is 5 and 5. So these are 5 inches down. These are 1 inch down. I'm going to measure the width of this chassis back here. Just a smidge under 39 inches. And I'm hoping that these are square. Yeah, so it's 39. Cool. And up here, we got 40. So, yeah. Looks like we can just come in and just mark this for the heck of it right here. That way we'll have a nice representation of where the frame is. Yeah, that's interesting. So right there. What I'm doing is looking down and looking at both edges of these frame rails so that I could see where the actual insert will be. Do this with a tape measure.
I don't think I've seen you have that many measures before.
This is pretty specific. This is where it counts. Not as specific as, say, lengthening a frame where you'll have to get the tire alignment, but, you know, there are angles in the drive shafts. So you want this, if this was like racked a little bit towards the rear, you want to maintain all that geometry. Just
Right. I just didn't know you owned that many rulers.
I actually own a lot. Oh, so look, these marks work out perfect. Yep. So it's 39, and then through here, 39. And to verify that the tape and the ruler are in harmony. Yeah. So if I cut just on the inside of each of these lines, it should be groovy. I'll put a floor jack under that. I got the majority of that cut out with the disc, but if it does pinch like the last cut did, try not to explode that grinding disc. So I'm going to go in with this battery powered Sawzall. It has a little more forgiveness should it hook up. There's usually a good amount of tension in a structure this big and hand fabricated.
So you're worried that it's gonna like Why are you using the Sawzall? I don't understand.
Sometimes when you cut a framework like this apart, it'll bind as it separates. So it'll pinch that disc and cause it to potentially break or just make a problem.
Oh, okay. Because I was wondering if you were just gonna like saw or grind it, like you were the whole way.
Yeah, so there's just a little bit holding it together, and I'll just reach in with the Sawzall and then relieve it. See how it's starting to get junky? Yep, it's loose though. See how it always kind of shifts?
Oh, yeah. You were reading my mind.
You can see it always does this. It's so frustrating. These things aren't cheap. They always get bent up. All right, it's loose.
Cool.
Just like that. Now it may slide right back. It might bind up. Let's see what happens. So this cross member here is actually the support for the torsion rods also. So I'm going to maintain these. This isn't connected right now, but its place is stuck. It has to be here because these rods are that long. So these are actually the springs that support the truck. Typically you think of a coil spring, right? But these are rods that twist. So yeah, it's kind of like a Volkswagen rear suspension.
It's
Ask me
clear
how
as
I
mud
know.
for me right now. But I have a feeling I'm going to figure it out.
Ooh, this thing's pretty heavy too.
It looks like a spider. Like a big tarantula.
Oh. Yeah. Or we could just manhandle it into place. All right. Looks like the width is okay. All right. Let's try this again, shall we?
You knew it was going to be heavy like that, though, right?
Yeah, that's why I put the jack under in the first place, just to support, but it was just off balance. I've never taken one of these out. Like with a Volkswagen engine, when I put it on the jack, I kind of know where the balance point is, but...
Oh, I got you. Wow, that thing is heavy.
Yeah, it's heavy.
Because then you need to get it in place so you can weld it into place.
That is correct.
I see.
Double jack technique. One of these days I'll get a jack with 4 wheels on it, but for now we have a jack with 3 wheels.
It rolls, kind of.
Still works. That's what you get for shopping at the low-cost tool supply. Oh look, it's rising into position. Uh-huh. A little there.
Wow.
Whatever it takes. Yeah. So it looks like I don't want to crush these hydraulic lines, but I do want it as far back as possible, and that puts us right in that realm right there. All right. So until we get the body positioned and the transmission attached, I really don't want to make too much of a permanent commitment on this location. Should line, I measured the body as being about 46 inches from the spindle to the back wall of the cab. and then the engine and transmission appear like they'll fit, but I'm going to tack this in place, and front tires are coming in, and then the other pieces to the engine mounts are going to arrive, and then we'll check it. But for now, I'm just going to tack this in place. Because this thing's flopping around, it's going to be real difficult for me to make a bracket and just line it all up perfect and then tack it. So I'm going to tack one corner first at 1 inch down from the frame, as I mentioned, and then move each one into position. And it'll be just like it was, but further back.
Ooh, let me pull my...
So what we established with the other setup before we cut it was that this needs to be a 1/2 inch above the chassis line. So I'm getting that established. And I left about a little over an 1/8 inch gap so I get a good full penetration weld. So a little bit higher, a little bit further back. Right, 1/2 inch. All right, so I'm going to grab that right there, drop it just a touch. Yeah, 1/2 inch, cool. It's hot.
It just is warm.
All right, so I got this set up, and you see this gap that I have. I'm going to fill this with the tack, and that's going to allow me to position the other 3 parts. This tack's just like a little pin right now that's going to maintain that where I want it. Then I'm going to come with this jack, raise up this side, and that side's going to stay put. Ask me how I know. Oops. Bring this up. Need a hammer, get that moved a little bit. Wow, no forgiveness. Whew. Okay, have to nip that weld a little bit. All right. That one is at 1. That one's at a 1/2. Groovy. Now this one was at 5. I'm just going to put this below. Tack that again because it's settled in. I don't want to lose that. I just want it to be flexible. I got 2 strong tacks on the back side, and now we'll just lever the front up to match. And on this other side, it's a little bit wacky. You see how that gusset is way in from the frame edge, so that's something I'm going to have to plate in. I'm going to put a temporary plate just to hold it. See all that space? It's because this is much further in, so that's not a big deal. It'll actually be stronger if I put a plate coming straight across, tying into this top rail, covering the whole issue. It'll actually box the frame even better. But I want it 5 inches from there, and that is, got to come up a 1/2 inch. There it is. Down just 1/8. Five. Sweet. Cut a block. Steel. I think I got just the steel over here.
So what are you doing?
See that?
Oh, cool.
I'm going to put this plate and plate off the whole thing.
So that'll help strengthen it, and you have a little space there.
Correct.
Right.
Yep. But it's from another project. I'm just going to repurpose it. Yeah. Grab it just like that. Cool. Put it in the saw. All right. Only the good stuff. That's quite a significant plate. That'll hold her.
Just laying around.
Yep. About mucho perfecto. Notice the difference between when I'm welding sheet metal and welding this heavy steel?
Yeah.
I'm just cooking this.
Yeah, because is that what you did? You turned up the dial? Like,
Oh yeah, I'm at
make it
about
warmer?
19.6 volts now, so that it's a really hot weld to get penetration into the thicker metal. You'll notice there's absolutely no signs of it burning through like on the sheet metal. So you can really just lay into it. These are just tacks for now to just hang this in place. Yeah, a little more support here. You see these gaps. I'm gonna have to add some dropout material here, similar to what I've done here. But see this room? That's a pretty big gap, but it's 1/4 inch wall tube, and this is 1/4 inch wall. So I'm able to get the weld bead all the way in and weld up inside to make sure it's super strong. One last tack over here. Same thing here, I'll just do a little gusset, dress up, come off of here, tie it all in. All right, so there you have one moved back, divorced transfer case. It's been relocated 41.5 inches rearward.
Wow. That's pretty cool. Because the engine, so the engine is going to sit in front of this, right?
Yes, I measured the cab to be about 41 or 46 inches from the spindle.
Uh-huh.
So roughly, this is 46.
Mm-hmm.
So the engine will go pretty much right here.
So the transfer case is, I know it's a very, not naive question, but a basic question. So what does the transfer case actually do? I don't really understand what a transfer case is.
It transfers.
Transfers like the power to the back?
It actually splits. From your engine, you got your spinning drive shaft thing, and it goes into, I'm imagining this one. So you see how these rotate in the same way? So it's sort of like the V drive on the boat, and that the power comes in here and goes back out to the front wheels for 4-wheel drive. And it comes off the back, so it transfers the power from the drive line to this gear set and goes back up to the front wheel drive set. Thusly named a transfer case.
It kind of makes sense.
Just
Kind of makes sense.
it all adds up.
I think once I see it all put together, it'll make better sense.
Yeah. But already this is looking a little cleaner. Got all this riffraff off of that. I'm going to redo all the air lines, all the electric, everything's coming out. Brake lines.
Part 175.
At about part 175, we'll be into the wiring, yes. And then next up is the front hub exploration and rims. These 2 rims came with it. I ordered a couple tires. The calipers were locked up to the brakes. So the brake drum was super rusty. I took the calipers off and got them spinning, so that's a good sign. The bearings aren't trashed. But yeah, it's going to need U-joints, all the inside stuff. So I'm going to take these off, get them turned at the shop, freshed up, and then we'll mount new tires and then see what it looks like. I know that these torsion bars are adjustable. I'm going to look it up. There's no hardware in there. I'm pretty familiar with the idea of a torsion bar, so there should be some kind of a bolt or something here because there's this little flipper. See that flipper? So This is all loose. I'm gonna have to figure out what hardware goes in there so that we can get a ride height on the front of this. But for now, it'll be dropped 100%, which is all right by me. Then we'll position the engine, get into the engine and transmission mounts, carry on. Next up, tires and front hubs. Be there.